This is Jeremy Zwinger from the Rice Trader, just doing our weekly summary of the Rice Trader Report. And of course, this is the October 8th report, the last one before our 10th anniversary World Rice Conference, which, as all of you know, is going to be in Hanoi. I hope to see you all there. It looks to be extremely well attended, probably our largest gathering in history. Of course, starts on the 10th and goes all the way through the 12th. There'll be the World's Best Rice Award, there'll be the Lifetime Achievement Award, there'll be much more there of good speeches, hopefully a bunch of trade in the hallways as always, and a lot of good friends getting together for a good time. So I look forward to seeing you all, and probably the next time, just in a few days, we can enjoy just a little talk about the market. With that, it's been kind of an interesting week on some levels, definitely. Besides the politics in the U.S., which we'll talk about just in a few minutes, definitely trade has been interesting, and we have to start with Iraq. Iraq has already bought 180,000 tons outside of Asia just recently. Of course, this includes a very high-priced South American and extremely high-priced U.S. material at 625, versus an Asian price which is obviously dramatically cheaper. This clearly continues to be a political trade. It doesn't make a lot of sense for them to be buying at such high levels when the U.S. quality is lower than Asia. Again, that's politics at work. We were joking before this of what is a market. And markets aren't as simple as one might think. It's just not the cheapest price and the best quality. Although in long term it will be. This was a political trade based upon other factors, not about price or quality, as we all know in this market. This is definitely affecting the Asians because they of course want this Iraqi market, and in some ways they deserve it. But on saying that, it actually didn't affect prices. In fact, we see Thailand's up to $400 a ton this week, moving up all the way from $375 several weeks ago to $400. And Viet's even higher at $405, it was slightly down from last week. But the cheaper buys definitely are India and Pakistan. India's at $375, and with their quality, that's a great buy. A really good buy at $375 for the quality we've been seeing out of that origin. And Pak at $385 as well. On the same note, looking at yearly trades so far, we have obviously a clear front runner to be the largest exporter, and that's going to be obviously India. They're at 9.2 million metric tons already, probably on pace to do 12 million tons this year. They're slightly off even from last year. Thailand's having a great year, but it's about 6% off of last year at 7.7 million tons. But still one of the best years in history besides last year's great push. But really, you've seen an amazing push out of Vietnam, which is up on the year slightly, and Pakistan significantly up after last year's lower amount of trade. The U.S. is way down, as we were saying, significantly down, 20%, which is why, again, I've said often, the U.S. market, especially the futures, is psychological. It's been trading on the Iraqi tenders. That doesn't make sense supply and demand-wise. Yes, this Iraqi business, of which there's still talks of delays in Iraqi business, and there's pieces that need to occur, especially when the U.S. was privately done. It is not supply and demand. The southern crop is huge. It's not of great quality. There's going to be issues. But today's market's just trading on the fact they got a little bit of Iraqi trade. I would expect Latin America will continue to buy Asian rice. You'll continue to see more imports in the U.S. The U.S.'s price is too high and too low of quality, as we've said. And to have exports down on the year 20% with this big crop coming off, this is an opportunity. Prices should decline significantly from this point on. If we look from here, there was a Japan tender as well. Japan, interestingly, moving to the Japonica market, bought Chinese rice on a global tender. There was a lot of push that it would be U.S. or Viet rice, but they bought China at a very cheap price. And I think that was the Japanese expression of this tender, was to buy cheaper Chinese rice to keep the players in line. There has been some very high guarantees from ADM and other players in the California paddy market. I find this an extremely risky play. ADM is actually a $10 over guarantee. And to put that in perspective, the current long grain futures, even with the dollar run this week, are only about $10.75 a hundredweight. That's about $17 a hundredweight, just under $17 a hundredweight. $7 more, $6 more than the current market for long grain. There's a huge premium over with the amount of supplies we're seeing in China and Vietnam, and the Australians having 2 years of very big crops. So as the tender said, there is a lot of question of if higher values in California can stay. with how much rice there is all around, a very large southern crop. There's just a lot of questions that we'll talk about more next week. Outside of that, it's the continued question of China and Africa. You know, the global trade is down for the 5 majors by 2.7%. It's still at a very nice number because last year was clearly record. But, you know, we're definitely seeing China play, like they did in the Japonica tender in Japan, play the spoiler. They're exporting to key markets. They're still importing some, but they're definitely keeping this food market in line. They're really not aggressively not buying from the U.S. soybeans and other materials, so they're definitely playing a key role in policy. Outside of that, it's normal trade that I would say. As we get in, it's been a good year, not record, but nearly record trade, and we'll see politics and weather and price all come together, and many speeches next week that'll talk about this more in depth, and hopefully many trades in the hallway as well. Outside of that, we do have a special report this week on prices. And of course, our more weekly, longer section on Pakistan that we do each month. It's a great report, as I've been saying the last several weeks. This is a time of volatile trade, a lot of political interference. I would watch the data much closer than normal. And so I would get into the rice trader, look at the data as we're going into this, and just see, is a perception that with the largest supply of food since 2000, 2001, that prices can rise much? Some believe the prices can fall significantly. Some believe, you know, we're in a $20 shift. You know, I have a lot of concerns when I talk to a lot of the global VIPs. They see a 4-year depression in food prices, land values going down. And these are some very interesting things to talk about next week. Anyway, it was a pleasure, as always, to summarize the rice trader just briefly. I look forward to seeing all my friends next week. And with that, I'm signing off.